The skies of Virex Prime burned violet and gold as 3 suns dipped below jagged crystal mountains. Floating cities hummed above the planet, like silent gods, their gravity rings glowing with ancient runes older than most civilizations in the known galaxy. This was a world where power decided worth, and on this world, she had been judged unworthy. Her name was Jalira of House Threx, daughter of a bloodline forged in stellar wars and ritual combat. Her skin shimmered with iridescent patterns that shifted with her emotions. Her eyes reflected starlight like liquid metal. She stood tall among her kind, strong, intelligent, trained in diplomacy and warfare alike. Yet every alien male of her species had refused her, not because she was weak, but because she was too strong. Among the Virexi, males sought mates they could dominate, guide, and protect. Jalira had crushed challengers in ceremonial combat. She had outperformed admirals in tactical simulations. She had stared down ancient predators that lurked beyond the planetary shield. They feared her brilliance. They feared her will. They feared becoming irrelevant beside her. Whispers followed her through marble corridors and glowing council halls. She would break a husband. She would command him. She would shame him. So they rejected her, again and again, until final refusal echoed through the Grand Union Hall, watched by hundreds of alien delegates from dozens of species. Jalira felt the sting burn behind her eyes, not as weakness, but as fury. The universe valued dominance, yet punished those who embodied it too well. She turned away from the council dais, her boots ringing against crystal stone, her breath sharp with restrained rage. That was when the humans spoke. A single voice, calm, steady, unimpressed by gods, monsters, or ancient bloodlines. I will marry her. The hall froze. Gravity rings flickered. Delegates recoiled in shock. Dozens of eyes locked onto lone human, standing near the rear observation platform. He wore no ceremonial armor, no glowing sigils, no ancient lineage marks, only a dark combat coat scarred by plasma burns and stitch repairs. His name was Captain Elias Ward, representative of Earth and commander of a human exploration fleet that had survived encounters no other species dared approach. Jalira turned slowly. Her senses flared. She smelled iron, ozone, and something unfamiliar. Resolve. Human resolve had a weight to it, a quiet pressure that pressed against the soul rather than the body. You! One of the Virexi elders hissed, mandibles flaring. A short-lived species. A fragile species. A species barely accepted into the Galactic Union. Elias Ward met their gaze without flinching. He had faced void leviathans at 8 stars. He had stood on dead worlds haunted by ancient machines that whispered madness. This council did not frighten him. I have crossed 3 forbidden sectors, Elias said. I have buried crew members whose names history will never record. I have fought enemies older than your civilization and survived by learning, adapting, and refusing to kneel. He stepped forward. Each footstep echoed like a challenge. I see strength in her, he continued. I see intelligence. I see courage. Where you see threat, humans see partnership. Jalira felt something crack inside her chest. Not weakness. Hope. Dangerous hope. The elders laughed, a sound like grinding stone. A human male would not survive her trials. She would dominate you. She would destroy you. Elias smiled. Not arrogance. Not mockery. Experience. Humans do not fear strong companions, he said. We evolved on a death world. Our planet tried to kill us every day. We survived by standing beside those stronger than us and becoming stronger together. The council invoked the trial of bonding, an ancient challenge meant to humiliate unworthy suitors. They expected his death. They demanded he face the Karnak's depths, a living labyrinth beneath the planet, filled with ancient predators and shifting gravity storms. Jalira stepped forward, fury blazing. This trial kills seasoned warriors, she said. Elias looked at her, really looked at her, not as a prize, not as a threat, but as an equal. I will return, he said softly, and when I do, they will never doubt you again. The descent into the Karnak's depths swallowed light itself. Organic walls pulsed like living muscle. Gravity twisted without warning, slamming Elias into stone, then releasing him into free fall. Creatures with too many limbs hunted by sound, memory, and fear. His helmet cracked. His blood floated in crimson spheres. Pain screamed through his nerves. Yet he adapted. He learned the rhythm of the labyrinth. He used sound to mislead predators. He turned gravity surges into weapons. He remembered every fallen human who taught him that survival was not strength alone, but ingenuity. Above, Jalira watched through forbidden sensors, her claws digging into stone. She had never prayed before. Now she did. Days passed. The council prepared to declare him dead. Then the labyrinth roared. A massive tremor shook the planet. Elias emerged from the depths, armor shattered, eyes burning with defiance, dragging behind him the severed core of the ancient apex predator that ruled the Karnoks. Silence crushed the hall. He dropped the core at Jalira's feet. "For my partner," he said. The elders recoiled in fear. They saw it then. Humans did not dominate by tradition. They did not submit to destiny. They faced the impossible and rewrote the rules through sheer will. Jalira stepped beside Elias. For the first time in her life, she did not feel alone at the top. The universe shifted. Ancient powers stirred. Other species watched with unease. Because if a human could stand beside one of the strongest beings in the galaxy without fear, then perhaps humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had believed. And somewhere beyond the stars, something ancient took notice. Something that had ended civilizations before. The word carried no language, no sound, yet it pressed against minds across star systems, awakening dormant sentinels and ancient intelligences that had slept since before recorded time. On Virex Prime, Jalira felt as a cold tremor crawl along her spine. Elias felt it too, not as fear, as recognition. Something out there had noticed humanity. The council chamber remained silent, yet the silence no longer belonged to the elders. It belonged to uncertainty. The severed core of the Karnoks predator pulsed faintly at their feet, radiating residual energy that distorted gravity around it. Jalira lifted her chin, her bioluminescent markings blazing brighter than ever before. She placed one clawed hand on Elias's shoulder. The contact sent a ripple through both of them. Her species bonded through dominance rituals and genetic compatibility. Humans bonded through choice. That difference resonated deeper than any ritual. "You survived," she said, her voice low and unsteady. Elias met her gaze. "I adapted," he replied. The elders attempted to regain control. "This union violates balance," one proclaimed. "It destabilizes tradition." Another hissed, "Humans invite catastrophe wherever they tread." Elias stepped forward again, unarmed, exhausted, yet unbowed. "Tradition does not protect you from extinction," he said. "Adaptation does." His words struck deeper than threats ever could. Around them, representatives from other species whispered among themselves. Avian scholars tilted their heads. Silicon-based entities pulsed with recalculating light. Insectoid warriors shifted uneasily. Every species in the hall understood one truth. Humanity had just demonstrated something terrifying. Not brute force, not numbers, but the refusal to accept limits imposed by others. The council had no choice. The trial of bonding had been completed, the ancient laws activated. Jalira and Elias were recognized as a bonded pair on the Galactic Accord, but recognition brought consequence. As they exited the hall together, alarms began to wail across Virex Prime. Deep, resonant tones that meant only one thing: external threat. The sky fractured as a tear opened above the planet, space itself folding inward like wounded flesh. Through it emerged structures that defied geometry. Living machines, black spires wrapped in shifting glyphs older than stars. The ancient ones had arrived, the species known in forbidden records as the Vorlith Continuum, civilization extinguishers, harvesters of potential. They had wiped out empires that reached too high, grew too adaptable, too unpredictable. Humanity fit every criterion. Vorlith vessels descended without engines, without heat, without mercy. Defense grids failed instantly. Energy weapons passed through Vorlith hulls as if striking shadows. Panic erupted across the city. Jalira's instincts screamed for war. Elias's mind shifted into command mode. Get civilians underground, he ordered, already moving. Redirect power to kinetic defenses. Virexi commanders hesitated. They had never fought an enemy immune to energy. Elias grabbed a fallen Virexi officer by the collar. Listen to me, he said. Energy feeds them. Mass and momentum hurt them. Humans learned this the hard way. Above them, a Vorlith construct unleashed a wave of reality distortion that collapsed an entire tower into dust. Elias activated his wrist console, transmitting a priority signal across subspace. This is Captain Elias Ward to all human vessels. Vorlith confirmed. Protocol iron persistence authorized. From beyond the system's edge, human ships emerged from silent running. No grand formations. No glowing shields. Just compact hulls bristling with rail cannons, mass drivers, and weapons designed to kill gods through physics alone. Jalira watched in awe. Human ships accelerated beyond safety margins that would liquefy most species. They fired tungsten slugs at relativistic speed. The void screamed. Vorlith hulls shattered. Not cleanly, violently. Fragments twisted and screamed in non-sound frequencies that made minds bleed. The Ancient Ones had not expected resistance. They had not expected learning. One Vorlith construct turned toward Elias, its surface rippling with symbols that translated directly into thought. You are anomaly. You are contagion. You must be erased. Elias felt pressure build behind his eyes. Memories flashed. Earth, oceans, storms, wars. Humanity standing back up every single time the universe tried to break it. He answered aloud. We heard that before. The Vorlith unleashed a cognitive attack meant to unravel his mind. Jalira lunged, shielding him instinctively. The wave hit her. She screamed as ancestral memories burned through her consciousness. Her knees buckled. Elias caught her. Human neural architecture reacted differently. Where other minds shattered has adapted. Human brains evolved to handle chaos, contradiction, trauma. He took the Vorlith assault and turned it inward, focused it, reflected it. The construct recoiled. Confused, wounded, impossible. Elias seized a fallen mass driver and fired point-blank into the Vorlith core. The construct collapsed into inert debris. Across the planet, humans and Virexi fought side by side. Human soldiers adapted Virexi tech on the fly. Virexi warriors learned human tactics with brutal efficiency. Jalira rose unsteadily, rage blazing brighter than pain. She joined Elias at the front lines, tearing through Vorlith drones with claw and blade. Together they moved like a single organism. Not dominance. Synchronization. Above the planet, a massive Vorlith command structure began charging a weapon capable of collapsing the star itself. Elias stared upward, calculating impossible odds. Human fleets would not arrive in time. He opened a channel to his ship. Prepare the core, he said. Jalira understood instantly. You will die, she said. He met her gaze. No, he said. We will change the rules again. He explained quickly. Human ships carried experimental gravity cores designed to survive singularity conditions. If detonated inside the Vorlith command structure, the resulting mass collapse would consume it, and possibly him. Jalira grabbed his arm. Her species did not beg. She did now. You promise a return, she said. Elias placed his forehead against hers. I promise to stand beside you, he replied. And that includes standing between you and extinction. She felt it then. The bond. Not imposed. Chosen. She nodded once. Human ships broke formation, drawing Vorlith fire. Elias boarded a strike craft and launched toward the command structure alone. Vorlith defenses tore space apart around him. He flew through it anyway. His craft slammed into the Vorlith core. He armed the gravity device manually. The construct screamed. Space collapsed inward. Light vanished. Then silence. The Vorlith fleet began to disintegrate without coordination. Human and Virexi forces finished them. Victory came at unbearable cost. Jalira stood among the ruins, staring at the empty sky where Elias had vanished. Her heart shattered. Across the galaxy, ancient observers reconsidered everything they believed about humanity. Then space rippled again. A distorted silhouette emerged. Damaged. Burned. Human. Elias's strike craft tumbled into atmosphere, crashing beyond the city limits. Jalira reached him first. He lived. Barely. She carried him in her arms, ignoring wounds that would have killed lesser beings. As medics worked, Elias opened his eyes. "Still standing?" he whispered. Jalira pressed her forehead to his. "Always," she said. The air around the medical chamber smelled of ionized metal, antiseptic mist, and burned crystal. Jalira remained motionless beside Elias. Her claws clenched so tightly into stone floor that fine fractures spread outward like frozen lightning. Monitors hummed. Lights pulsed in slow rhythms meant to calm minds that knew too much war. Elias lay suspended in a translucent healing field, his body wrapped in layered containment bands that stabilized broken bones and shredded muscle. Human biology baffled Virexi healers. His organs refused to shut down. His heart continued to beat with stubborn defiance. They had seen warriors die with lesser wounds. Yet this human refused the universe's invitation to rest. Jalira watched his chest rise and fall, each breath of victory stolen from death itself. Outside the chamber, the planet reeled. Entire districts lay in ruins. Crystalline towers lay shattered like fallen titans. The void debris continued to dissolve, their remains collapsing into harmless dust now that their command intelligence had been annihilated. The elders convened an emergency session, their authority shaken beyond repair. They had witnessed something no prophecy had predicted, a bonded pair that rewrote survival equations. A human who entered ancient death and returned. Across the system, long-range sensors detected movement, not Vorlith, observers, hidden fleets that had watched from the dark between stars. Civilizations that had remained silent for millennia now whispered among themselves. If humans could defy the Vorlith continuum, then the balance of power had shifted, and balance was something ancient species feared losing. Hours passed. Jalira did not move. When Elias finally stirred, the motion was subtle. A twitch of fingers. A shallow breath that caught, then steadied. Her bioluminescent markings flared uncontrollably, casting rippling light across the chamber walls. She leaned closer. "Elias," she said softly. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first. Pain rippled across his features, yet beneath it burned awareness. He looked at her, actually looked, and smiled. "That was loud," he murmured. Her breath caught. "You collapsed the gravity core inside an ancient god machine," she said. "That qualifies as loud." A weak laugh escaped him, rough and breathless. "Worth it," he replied. The healers protested as she brushed her forehead against his. They did not stop her. Even they felt it. The bond resonated beyond biology. It altered probability fields, tightened survival margins, made the impossible slightly more likely. Humanity had brought something dangerous into the galaxy. Hope backed by action. Elias healed faster than predicted. Human cells rebuilt with savage efficiency, scar tissue forming like armor rather than weakness. Within days, he stood again, supported by exoskeletal braces and pure will. The council demanded his presence. Jalira walked beside him through corridors that once echoed with dismissal. Now they echoed with silence. Fearful silence. The elders spoke carefully. The Vorlith were not exterminated. One admitted. They retreated. They have never retreated before. Elias folded his arms. "Predators retreat when prey bites back," he said. Another elder leaned forward. "They will return with greater force." "Good," Elias replied. "That means they learned." The room stiffened. Humans did not simply survive conflict. They evolved through it. Jalira felt pride surge through her chest, sharp and overwhelming. She had been rejected for her strength. Now she stood bonded to a species that defined strength as adaptation, unity, and refusal to yield. Outside Virex Prime, human fleets established defensive positions. Not to dominate, to protect. They shared data freely. They taught kinetic warfare to species who had relied on energy weapons for eons. They listened to alien perspectives, integrating them without losing identity. That frightened the galaxy more than conquest ever could. Deep within uncharted space, something vast awakened fully. The Vorlith continuum was not singular. It was a layer. Behind it lurked architects, entities that shaped extinction events like tools. They observed humanity now with focused intent, not hatred, interest. On Virex Prime, Elias trained with Virexi warriors despite his injuries. He learned their combat forms. They learned human improvisation. Zhao Lyra sparred beside him, neither holding back. Each clash echoed like thunder, each movement refined through trust. No dominance, no submission, only synchronization. During one such session, alarms screamed again, different this time. A single object had appeared in high orbit. No weapon signature, no propulsion. A structure made of layered geometry that hurt to observe directly. A message arrived, bypassing all known encryption. Not language, intent, curiosity wrapped in threat. Elias felt it brush against his mind. Zhao Lyra staggered as ancestral fear screamed through her bloodline. This presence dwarfed the Vorlith. The council panicked. Appeasement, one cried. Submission, another hissed. Elias straightened. No, he said. Communication. They stared at him. This entity ended civilizations, an elder warned. So did hurricanes on Earth, Elias replied. We learned to read them. He stepped forward, activating human translation arrays linked to neural pattern recognition. He projected not threat, not fear, but intent backed by memory. Images of Earth, of struggle, of loss, of humans standing back up. The entity responded, not with words, with pressure. The sky darkened. Gravity warped. Zhao Lyra braced herself beside Elias. The presence spoke directly into their bonded resonance. You are anomaly squared, it conveyed. Union increases probability of disruption. Elias exhaled slowly. Disruption is how progress works, he answered. A ripple passed through the entity. Calculation. Reevaluation. You resist extinction parameters, it stated. Yes, Elias replied. And we will continue. Silence followed. Long. Heavy. Then the entity withdrew slightly, its structure folding inward like a closing eye. Observation phase initiated. It declared. The object vanished. The galaxy exhaled. Zhao Lyra looked at Elias with something close to awe. You spoke to a universe ender, she said. And it listened. Elias shrugged carefully, his injuries still healing. Humans talk to storms, he said. Sometimes they listen. News spread across star systems. Humanity was no longer categorized as a minor species. They were now labeled unpredictable catalysts. Dangerous, valuable, impossible to ignore. Zhao Lyra's people began to change. Young Virexi questioned old dominance rituals. They saw strength expressed through alliance rather than control. Elders resisted, but cracks formed. Cultural evolution had begun. Elias received transmission from Earth. Governments, scientists, explorers, all asking the same question. What now? He looked out at the stars, Zhao Lyra beside him, her presence steady and powerful. Now we keep going, he said. Now we prepare. Because the universe just noticed us. Zhao Lyra stood on the highest observation terrace of the rebuilt city, the crystal beneath her feet warm with restored energy. The air carried the scent of charged minerals and growing life, a sign that the planet itself had begun healing. Beside her, Elias leaned against the railing, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp, always scanning, always calculating. Scars lined his body now, permanent reminders etched into human flesh. Among his people, scars told stories. Among hers, they marked survival against impossible odds. Together, they represented something new. The galaxy had changed quietly since the day the Vorlith retreated. No declarations, no triumphant monuments, just subtle shifts. Trade routes realigned to include human space. Ancient species open archives long sealed, sharing knowledge once hoarded out of fear. Younger civilizations looked to humanity not as conquerors, but as proof that survival did not require submission. The observers still watched, The architects still calculated, but the equations had grown unstable because humans refused to fit inside them. Jalira remembered the days when rejection had followed her like a shadow. She remembered standing alone in council halls built for power, yet feeling powerless in ways no enemy could inflict. Now she felt whole, not because someone stood above her, not because someone bowed, but because someone chose to stand beside her, even when the universe itself pushed back. Elias broke the silence. "They are rebuilding faster than expected," he said, nodding toward the city below. "They learned from us," Jalira replied. "And from you," she added. He shook his head slightly. "From humans," he corrected. "We never survive alone." Below them, Virexi engineers worked alongside human technicians, adapting technology through shared trial and error. Laughter echoed where once there had been rigid formality. Mistakes happened. Arguments flared. Solutions followed. Progress rarely looked elegant, but it endured. A message arrived through Elias's implant, not urgent, not hostile, a simple signal from deep space. A Vorlith remnant, stripped of aggression, broadcasting a warning rather than attack. New forces were moving, not conquerors, not annihilators. Something older, something curious, something that watched humanity the way fire watches dry grass. Elias forwarded the data to allied fleets without hesitation. Transparency had become humanity's quiet weapon. No secrets meant no leverage. Jalira watched him, her expression thoughtful. "You understand," she said, "that peace here does not mean safety forever." Elias nodded. "Peace is not an ending," he said. "It is a pause where you decide who you are before the next test." She considered that. Her people had always believed worth came from proving dominance once and holding it. Humans proved worth by enduring every test, again and again, without losing themselves. The council convened one final time before dissolving its ancient structure. Elders relinquished authority willingly or stepped aside under the pressure of cultural momentum. A new council formed, not ruled by bloodline, not ruled by fear, but guided by capability and consent. Jalira declined permanent leadership. She chose something rarer, influence without chains. She became a bridge between species, her presence commanding respect without demanding obedience. Elias received offers as well. Titles, positions, command over joint fleets. He accepted none of them. Instead, he returned to exploration. Humanity had never thrived by staying still. Before his departure, he stood once more on the terrace with Jalira. Stars shimmered in slow motion as ships entered and exited hyperspace. "So," he said, "this is where stories usually end." Jalira tilted her head. "In my culture," she said, "stories end with dominance secured." "In mine," Elias replied, "they end with lessons learned." She studied him, sensing the truth beneath his words. "What lesson does this one carry?" He thought for a moment. "That strength alone isolates," he said, "and courage alone burns out. But when strength chooses courage and courage chooses compassion, the universe pays attention." She stepped closer, resting her forehead against his. Her markings glowed softly, no longer blazing with challenge, but steady with certainty. "You changed us," she said. "We changed each other," he replied. That mattered more. When Elias departed, the farewell was quiet. No ceremony, no spectacle, just a moment of shared stillness as his ship lifted into the stars. Jalira watched until it vanished, feeling no emptiness, only continuity. She knew he would return. Humans always did. Time passed differently after that. Threats emerged. Some were defeated. Some were understood. Some were avoided entirely through dialogue humanity insisted upon attempting first. Not because humans were naive, but because they valued survival over pride. The architects observed longer than intended. Their models continued to fail. They began to adjust not humanity, but themselves. For the first time since their creation, they questioned the purpose of extinction. Across the galaxy, children of many species grew up hearing stories, not legends of gods or empires, but of a human who walked into death and returned. of an alien who refused to shrink herself for acceptance, of a bond that did not weaken either side, but amplified both. Humanity never claimed dominance. They never needed to. Their strength spoke through action, through endurance, through the quiet refusal to surrender identity for safety. And when the universe tested them again, as it always would, humanity stood ready. Not alone, never alone. The stars continued to burn. Civilizations rose and fell. But somewhere between ancient fear and endless possibility, a simple truth remained. The universe did not belong to the strongest. It belonged to those who chose to stand, adapt, and reach out even when everything told them to kneel